Hello, welcome to Sylvan Miss Designs. I do a large majority of my Mandala art on recycled glass jars. So I wanted to take a few minutes today to show you just how quick and easy it is to prep these jars from start to finish. To start with, just for pure fun, I went and Googled what other people said about the best methods to take labels off of these jars. And the first ones I've come across were things like soak your jars in acetone nail polish remover, citric acid, and rubbing alcohol. And I'm thinking, you're kidding, right? You don't need to do any of that. So let me show you what I do. First things first, make sure that you inspect the jars thoroughly. Make sure that there is no cracks, chips, or any sort of defect within the glass. Simply ensure that your jars are clean. Give them a real good wash in hot, soapy water. Now today, I've got a hold of a jar with one of the paper labels, as well as some of the plastic kind of coated label. For the paper label, take a scrubbing sponge like this one and simply rub off the paper label. As long as your water was hot enough, the label is going to just practically slosh right off. Once you've rubbed most of that off, then fill the jar with hot water and leave it in the sink. For the plastic coated label, you're not going to be able to use the scrubbing sponge to get the label off. So go ahead and fill it with hot water and leave it to soak as well. Now, honestly, you don't even need to leave these soak. The biggest thing here is the hot water. Now, because I had just filled the sink, that's what I used. Do you have to do that? No. You could simply boil some water, pour it in, put the lid on, and leave it sit. Now, when I'm soaking these, the water in the sink doesn't even need to cover the entire jar or even the label. After maybe 2 minutes in this hot water, go ahead and use the scrubbing sponge to remove remaining adhesive. And then once you're done, give the jar another quick rinse. For the plastic label, again, the key is just the hot water. The hot water loosens up the adhesive on the back. For the plastic label, now, after it's been sitting a few minutes and the jar is nice and warm, it just peels right off. Now that that's done, what do you do about the printed date that is on these jars? All you're gonna need is a tiny bit of rubbing alcohol. Simply wet a cotton ball with the rubbing alcohol and wipe it off. You really don't need to scrub it. It just wipes off. Now, once that's done, get another clean cotton ball, add some of the rubbing alcohol, and wipe down the whole surface of your jar. This just makes sure that there's no remaining residue, that there wasn't any oils from your hands or anything else on the jars. Then let that dry too. Depending on what was in your jars, keep in mind you may want to let your jars and the lids sit out for a little while. Even after washing, you could still have a lingering smell. Just make sure that once everything is washed and dry, don't cap your jars. So now we're completely ready to start. Depending on what you're going to do with your jars, you might want to mark out your intended design on it. I personally use an expo marker. The other thing you can do is print off your design on a piece of paper, draw it, whatever you want to do, and then just tape the paper to the inside of your jar and paint away. If you're going to be painting your jars like I do, I use a water-based acrylic and a medium, like this one. I love this Liquitex one. You can use whatever you like, but this is going to ensure that you get your best paint adhesion to the glass, especially if you decide to oven cure it. So speaking of oven curing, how exactly do you oven cure the piece? When you've completed your painting, you do need to leave your glass for at least 1 hour to dry before attempting to cure it. However, it's highly recommended to let it air dry for at least 48 hours or more before you do so. Always start with your oven off and cold. Do not try to preheat it or piggyback curing with any kind of baking. Doing so can cause your glass to crack or shatter in the oven. Use a cookie sheet to sit your item on. You can line your tray with parchment paper here if you choose. Do not place the lid of the oven. Make sure you take that off and then sit the item on the sheet with its opening up. Now, generally, curing is done at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 30 minutes. Although, since I've used this medium, it does require a lower temperature of 300 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, the 30-minute cure time does not include your oven's preheat. So I'm setting my time to 30 minutes. And sadly, my toaster oven doesn't have a separate preheat timer, but I do know it takes roughly 10 minutes to preheat. So I'm adding that 10 minutes for a total of 40 minutes. When your timer has gone off and the glass is done, don't be tempted to collect the glass yet. Leave it alone. Do not open your oven door at all. Any type of drastic change in temperature, like if you open the door or take it out, will cause your item to crack or shatter. Only remove your glass once the oven is completely cold again. Even after all of this, it's still advised to wait at least another 24 hours before you put your glass to use. Now the glass portion of your project should be complete. Now, hopefully I've covered all of your glass painting questions from prep to completion. However, if any other questions have arisen, please take a moment and drop your question or comment below. I appreciate you dropping by today. If you have made it this far, please consider subscribing for more Mandala.art content, from tips and tutorials to soothing art creation. Thanks again. Take care and be safe, everyone.